Welcome everyone. So we have already completed the section C zoography of the semester paper Ethology, Evolution and Zoography with the previous presentation, and from this presentation onwards we will be dealing with the section A, that is the ethology. So what is ethology? Ethology is simply the study of animal behavior. It is actually a very interesting branch of zoology, and it is a scientific, biological, and specific study of behavior of animals. It is a scientific study. Specifically, it is the scientific study of animal behavior. So it includes observation, analysis, interpretations, etc. So now, what is behavior? So behavior, it is a cumulative expression of activities of an individual in response to diverse stimuli. That is, when a individual is exposed to a stimulus or different kinds of stimuli, uh, how the particular individual responds to it. The complete activities involved in the uh, response to specific stimuli. That is what is its behavior. Okay, so it is actually in broad. It is refers to all the externally recognizable changes that bring about communication and can release behavior patterns in other animals, namely movement patterns of the whole body or part of the body, and facial expressions, body postures, vocalization, but this is sound production, even coloration, then release of certain order are all included in behavior. So it is not recognizable change, externally recognizable changes. So it could be through sound production, it could be production of certain smell, it could be changes in the color, it could be facial expression, body postures, movement of a certain part of the body or the whole body. So all these are included under behavior. So we can see that the behavior is not restricted to movements. Even the freeze reaction of a pigeon after seeing an approaching cat, it is included in the behavior. Or for example, standing motionless on a specific area by male antelope, indicating his ownership of that particular area as its territory. It is a behavior. Remaining still by prey animals towards a passing predator are also a part of behavior. So it needn't always be related with any kind of movement. So behavior, it can be even remaining motionless, isn't it? Now, with respect to chemicals, which we referred, chemicals, they play a very important role in behavior. For example, a female butterfly, it releases a smell. Actually, the smell is brought about by way of chemicals released, isn't it? And these chemicals which are produced, they are known as pheromone. Okay, so what you call the female butterfly, it produces pheromone, and this attracts a male. Okay, so hence it is referred as a sex pheromone specifically if we speak. Okay, so a female butterfly releasing the sex pheromone to attract a male. So it is actually the part of the reproductive behavior. Okay, so it brings about the movement of these what you call male butterflies towards the source of the pheromone. Okay, so that search and like finding out the position of the female butterfly, that is actually a part of the reproductive behavior. So ethology, if we speak, it is actually the biological study of behavior as a whole, and it appeared first in the middle of 18th century in publications of the French Academy of Sciences, and later by 19th century the term was used to express the lifestyles of animals. And the use of the term ethology, or the study of behavior, in its correct perspective was introduced in 1950 by a famous ethologist, Nicotin. It, okay, so in early years, like animal psychology was used instead of ethology, and even now, animal behavior is a term used synonymously to ethology. So here we will be using the term ethology itself. Okay, so we saw that it is behavior is how all the activities included as a part of the response to stimuli. That is what is referred as a behavior. So what is stimulus? Stimulus is any change in the environment which is capable of bringing about a reaction or response in a individual. Okay. So this stimulus, it could be external stimulus, for example, the presence of a predator, sight of a predator, or it could be internal stimulus, for example, hunger or thirst, or like hormonal changes, for example, during the breeding time, etc., in a sexually mature individuals. Okay, so that could be internal stimulus, or it could be a mix of both, that is external and internal stimulus together. For example, in the case of courtship behavior. Okay, here you can see it is a mix of both what you call external and internal stimulus. Internal stimulus, as said, because of the presence, the secretion of hormones, the hormonal changes happening during a particular time. Okay, that is breeding time or mating time. Okay, and here this is the presence of the what you call this particular bird of these are bird of paradise, and you can see the male birds. It is showing off that wings and the what you call tail, isn't it? This kind of particular visual stimulus. It is an external stimulus for the female bird. Okay, so this also actually triggers the courtship ritual or the behavior in response to the mating time. So here you can see it is both internal stimulus as well as the external stimulus, the presence of mate. Okay, so here this can see. So the dancing what you call male bird of paradise is actually a what you call behavior which is elicited by the presence of a female individual in its vicinity. So again, for them also it is a what you call response, a behavior response in response to the external and internal stimulus. Okay, so in both male and female, you can see the behavior. Okay, so now with respect to the history of ethology, we can see that ethology was introduced way back in 372 BC by Aristotle, and who Aristotle, he was a Greek philosopher and who for the first time wrote excellent descriptions of animal behavior in his book Historia Animalium, and which means history of animals. And Aristotle collected a great deal of information on animals, and he wrote that animals also possessed insight and love for families. The, later, uh, William Harvey, a scientist in 17th century, studied breeding, nesting, and the incubation behavior of many birds. Then we had Galen, who in 1840 carried out extensive observations on life of animals and wrote complete theory on details in a book consisting of two large volumes. The scientific study of animal behavior has its origin in the works of 18th century naturalist Gilbert White of England. But Charles Darwin can be regarded as the first one to make scientific study of animal behavior, maybe due to his theory of natural selection uh, that gave background to understanding animal behavior in terms of evolution. Then his views on instincts formed basis for the other theories to develop. And even Darwin's observations on behavior and compilation in his book, The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals, 1872. And this book gave a detailed and vivid description of animal behavior. And this book is still considered a classic book because of its contribution in understanding the emotional expression and their development in animals and human beings. Okay. He wrote, Darwin, he had written in his book on Origin of Species by Natural Selection, 1859, that phylogeny of behavioral development, phylogeny means evolution, okay, of behavioral development would be subjected to the same laws as that of morphological changes, and perhaps all instinctive motor sequences have emerged gradually, developing from many small and useful modifications. And Darwin could not live to see his theories being appreciated and accepted. Later, Darwin's assumptions got support from Mendel's laws of inheritance. So that was about Darwin's contribution. And in 1882, uh, the year Darwin died, John Romanes, a student and friend of Darwin, wrote a book on animal intelligence in the year 1882, and uh, it is also considered as a classic book on animal behavior. Then we had Charles Whitman, 1908. He was a zoologist at the University of Chicago, USA, who studied the behavior of pigeons and doves. And he wrote some of his observations in his book entitled Animal Behavior. And after his death, his student O. Riddle um, published his remaining works. And earlier, people started their work by studying pets, domestic and farmhouse animals. And fundamental turning point came in the works through the works of a German zoologist, Oscar Heinroth. Uh, he devoted his life studying waterfowls. Waterfowls belong to the family Anatidae, and he wrote a book on the ethology of Anatidae. His findings and dedication fascinated many of his colleagues and students, and one of his most devoted students was Konrad Lorenz. And Lorenz is considered to be father of ethology. The ethology reached its peak of popularity in the works of three great workers, Konrad Lorenz, Nico Tinbergen, and Karl von Frisch. Um, this Konrad Lorenz was an animal psychologist from Vienna, and Nico Tinbergen from a zoologist in Holland, and Karl von Frisch from Germany. And these three, they shared Nobel Prize in 1973 for their contribution in the field of animal behavior. They also got the credit of introducing an absolutely new branch of zoology and making it popular among common people. They all had a common feature that they all started their observation or ecological studies on pets and what you call farmhouse animals, domestic animals, etc. Now, when we speak about the Konrad Lorenz, he is regarded as founder father of ethology, and he was lecturer in animal psychology at the University of Vienna, Austria. He got initial inspiration from his teacher Oscar Heinroth. His close interaction with this great teacher proved to be extremely useful in building up the basis for future studies. Lawrence used to live in a farmhouse where he had many pets, and he observed shrews, frogs, monkeys, dogs, mainly gray lag geese. That was the what you call Lawrence's like major contribution was studying or observing the geese. Okay, on which he carried out extensive studies and developed a theory of imprinting, or what is known as a childhood learning during the critical period. And he wrote popular books like King Solomon's Ring, Man Meets Dog, On Aggression, etc. And all these writings showed his deep understanding of animals and hence received wide attention. And he had his works have created enthusiasm in many others for the study of behavior. Another major contribution was from Karl von Frisch, who was born in Vienna but spent his life in Germany. And he also had the opportunity of living in a house surrounded by a big farm with many trees, flowers, pet animals. And his main interest was observing bees. And with great patience, he conducted experiments on these social insects by carrying out series of experiments with colored cards. He observed that bees perceive colors, that they can actually differentiate colors, that they can locate the sun even during a heavy, like cloudy day, because they can perceive ultraviolet rays. And his most significant discovery was that bees have an extensive communication systems. That is, bees have two types of dances. One is waggle dance and like a round dance, and through that they communicate with other members of their beehive. Okay, so they can communicate with their conspecifics with by way of the dance behavior. And what do they communicate actually? They communicate the exact position of sun from the hive, then the position of flowers or the food from the hive, and the type of flowers are also communicated. So he also studied behavior of bees during total solar eclipse. How do they behave when the complete sun is masked? So his work on bees got him the Nobel Prize, and he also carried out work on the hearing and color vision of fishes. Now, the third person who had made a greater contribution was Nico Tinbergen, and he was born in Holland but lived in England, and he devoted many years observing and teaching behavior. And he was a zoologist by profession, and he studied variety of animals from butterflies, digger wasps, then stickleback fishes, and gulls, that is birds, in their natural habitat. And he is author of many books, including Animal Behavior, Study of Instincts, Animal in its World, Social Behavior in Animals, etc. Uh, Nicotinberg's contribution on the details of science stimulus we'll be learning it in detail. And he had also conducted experiments on other um, like